So let's just assume that you don't have an LLC or it's not structured properly. So the first things first, we want to go and get our business incorporated. Obviously, if we're not a real business on paper, if we haven't filed with whatever the Secretary of State is in our state, then our business isn't a legit business. But some of the steps that we can take before that is, if you're going to go into the banks to ask for real money, you want to look like the big businesses on paper, right? So when we talk about a Walmart, a Nike, a Apple, a Tesla, whoever, whenever you look them up in their headquarters, you're not going to see an apartment address. So you want to make sure that you have a professional address. A place that you can go and get something like that is Regis or Opus, and they will give you a professional address that you can use for your LLC. And then on top of that, you don't see them having, a 214 number, like a cell phone number or something like that. It's a professional number, a 1-800 number. So when you leverage those tools like Opus, Regis, iPostal, it comes with some of those things that allow you to incorporate your business and set it up. But
talk to me.
Because we are trying to make sure that we can get the max amount of funding, we want to make sure that when we set up that LLC, we aren't.
The biggest risk that most entrepreneurs take is trying to build a successful business without funding. But that risk is a reality for 1 out of every 3 entrepreneurs because their personal credit isn't where it needs to be in order for them to access that capital. Now, the truth is, you can close the gap between where your business is versus where you want it to be by leveraging business credit. But if your personal credit report is poor, 99% of banks and lenders are going to deny you from doing so. And I should know, because a couple of years ago, I leveraged my personal credit report to get funding from Chase to start my company. And now that very same company, Takeoff Financial, is serving entrepreneurs just like you that are looking to restore their credit to get access to 5 to 6 figures in funding. So if you want to go from risk to reward, click the link above or below this video to schedule your free consultation so that we can restore your credit and put you in position to access capital to build the business of your dreams.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Marvin Francois Show, your number one source for all things business, finance, and investing. And today is a very special day because our guest today is an entrepreneur, ex-professional athlete, investor, personal credit educator, and business credit specialist extraordinaire. Over recent years, our guest has leveraged his experience in the business and credit space to make multiple 6 figures working part-time hours, helping business owners get funded and restore their personal credit. Through his program, Wealth Accelerator, he's helped entrepreneurs acquire well over 6 figures in funding, impacted thousands of consumers all across the country on how to boost their personal credit scores, and today, he's here to do more of the same. Ladies and gentlemen, from Texas, I'm here with the one, the only, my guy, Mr. Basil Jackson. What's going on, family?
Man, my brother, what's up? I appreciate that introduction, man. I didn't know if you'd be able to do it. I seen you doing it for a lot of people, and that was the part that I was looking forward to the most, seeing how you were gonna pull that off.
Listen, man, if you sitting in that seat, you're one of one. So I got to make sure I introduce you right. You understand? So I appreciate you for coming on, man. How you feel?
I feel great, man. It's the flight was a little, got my back a little tight, but we here. Got me a little Starbucks, a little Red Bull. We ready to rock.
Ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I'm excited to have you on. Obviously, you and I got connected through some other movers and shakers in the industry. I loved your story. I loved the free game that you were given. And I said, man, I gotta clear the schedule. I gotta move some things around and bring this brother on here so we can give the game on top of game to other people that's trying to get to that next level. So I'm excited for it, man.
Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm ready to rock. Let's do it, bro.
Most definitely. So I know I did an okay job introducing you, right? But obviously nobody knows Basil Jackson better than the man, the myth, the legend himself. So for those who are unfamiliar, let's get them familiar. Who exactly is Basil Jackson?
So my name is Basil Jackson. I go by Billionaire Bays on all social media platforms. A lot of people try to say that I'm in the credit space, but I like to consider myself a relationship coach.
Okay.
And so I like to coach people on changing their relationship as it relates to money. So that's really how I like to position myself. And aside from that, I think I might be the sexiest credit repairer.
Okay.
And funding person.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm still living and breathing, but
yeah,
I'm still living and breathing. But I'll let you have that.
Yeah, we got some handsome brothers sitting right here.
Yeah.
Gonna give y'all some sauce. So I'm excited. Yeah, bro.
Let's do it, man. So before we get into the game, just to kind of take a couple steps back, because I said it in the intro, you've done very well for yourself in the space, and you've really provided a lot of value to people that are looking to, have success in the space themselves. But it wasn't always like this, right? Mm-hmm. I want to make sure I have this correct. So if we take a couple steps back, former linebacker, you played in the German Football League, received some tryout offers from the Seahawks, received some tryout offers from the Cowboys. Ultimately, you opt to go play in the Canadian Football League. So my question is, and I'm sure everyone else is wondering, how does a former professional football player who's working his way to get to the NFL find themselves in the funding space?
Man, so that's a great question, bro. So really kind of, once I got out of being in sports, once you play sports all your life, you realize that you're kind of on an entrepreneurship type schedule. You discover early on that you're going to be mentally unemployable. And so once I got done, I was kind of in a space of I was already accustomed to eating what I kill. And so, being able to find something that allowed me to do just that is, and be rewarded for my work is what I was looking for.
I love that. And I think what's great about you is that, you and I both know a lot of people in this credit space who come from all different walks and backgrounds. But what's great to you is that your beginning is not is set in stone in terms of where you're going to go. For you to come from the background you came from, once upon a time trying to get to the top level of being a professional athlete to now being in the space and impacting the lives of tens of thousands all across the country is absolutely incredible. I think what's also dope about your success in the business space, and this is what really made me want to bring you on here, because I know there's a lot of controversy around it. You've had success as an entrepreneur, but at this current moment in time, you're still balancing running a business with working a 9 to 5. I know there's a lot of controversy that surrounds that. So you don't have to work at the job that you're working right now, but you still choose to do so. Why exactly is that?
Man, so, despite what the gurus will tell you, it's not entrepreneurship or 9 to 5. For me, what I like to really show people is that you can do both. And until you're in a position where you feel like you can leave your 9 to 5, why leave if you can balance, being an entrepreneur and working a 9 to 5? I think the part that a lot of entrepreneurs don't tell people is that if you don't work a 9 to 5, you're probably working 24/7.
Amen.
And so, entrepreneurship is not for everybody.
Yeah.
But at the same time, just because you work a 9 to 5 doesn't mean you can't run a business as well. And so, I'm headed to eventually just being a full-time entrepreneur. But for now, this is where I'm at. I'm comfortable, like a lot of people watching this, and I don't need to leave. I'm good, so.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And like I said, once again, for you to be in this space but still have the impact that you're having as a business owner for other aspiring business owners is impactful. And I know you said you don't necessarily consider yourself a personal credit or business credit specialist. You consider yourself a relationship coach. And we're going to get into that game right here, right now, man. So I'm extremely excited to break it down for the people. So without further ado, can we get into the credit game?
Let's do it.
All right, so let's
do it, bro.
Let's start off on the personal credit side, right? Because obviously I know everyone talks about business funding, but there are steps that we need to take in order for us to get there. And I believe one of those steps is within that personal credit space. So I want to give our listeners the blueprint they need so they can take everything they have in this interview and either go and get funding, fund other people, do whatever it is that they want to do as it pertains to personal and business credit, right? Let's start off on the personal side of things. For starters, for those who don't know, why exactly is having good personal credit so important to the funding process?
Man, the biggest thing that I've kind of realized is your credit score, your credit profile is really your adult GPA. Without a good credit report, you're gonna pay more to just navigate your way through life, whether that's apartments, cars, houses, different things like that. Having a good credit report is gonna save you a lot of money and get you in a lot of doors without having to have the money up front. So I think just being able to navigate life in that aspect is like the number one reason why it's important to have a good credit report. And then aside from that, if you're someone who does want to start a business, you can go and get access to capital by being in position credit-wise.
Okay. So now let's say that I'm watching the interview. I'm starting from ground zero. You gave me the understanding as to the why I need to have good credit. But now I need the how, as in how am I going to go about building out my credit report in a way to where my, as you call it, adult GPA is where it needs to be. So if you're giving somebody the step-by-step blueprint that they need to have a good credit profile, a good credit report, what does that process look like?
So I want to say this before I kind of get into that, right? So a lot of people message me all the time and they're like, nobody ever taught me about credit. But just because nobody ever taught you about credit or it's not your fault that you messed it up doesn't mean it's not your responsibility to fix it. So once we get that understanding kind of going, the big thing about structuring your credit report is going to be making sure that you have primary positive reporting accounts. So when I say a primary account, I mean an account that you are the primary owner of, whether that's a student loan, a car note, a credit card. And then we want to really beef that credit report up with credit builder accounts. There's a lot of great ones out there: Self, Kickoff, Rent Reporters, Boom Pay. You can report your rent and backdate, get all that history. And then we want to make sure that our credit age is good as well, obviously. So that's where the trade lines come into place. A lot of people think if they can just add a bunch of trade lines to their credit report that it's going to be a great credit report. And that'll help the score out a lot and that'll help the age. But we want to have those primary accounts. And then, like I said before, your credit report is your adult GPA. So you don't want to have anything negative on your reputation. You don't want any D's or F's, really not even any C's, to be honest. So making sure that you're in position and that you don't have anything negative on your reputation means you'll be able to really just do whatever it is you want to do.
I love that. Diving deeper into that, you said something key where you talked about making sure that we have all the right things on our credit report, but then also making sure we don't have any of the wrong stuff on there as well, right? You're in the space now. I'm sure you've seen credit reports on top of credit reports, collections here, charge-offs there, people with hundreds upon hundreds of inquiries. If I already made the mistake of messing my credit up, I don't have the luxury of being able to start from ground zero. What are some of the different ways that I can go about cleaning my credit report so that I'm now in position to where my credit looks the way I need it to look?
Yeah. So, and I actually am one of those people who started out in that position, right? So whenever I was first embarking on this journey, my mom put everything in my name that she could.
Yeesh.
Anything that they let her.
Good Lord.
Cars, light bills, gas bills, all of the above. So if anybody can speak to what it takes to clean a credit report, it's myself. So kind of what that looks like is it depends what's on your credit report first, right? So first and foremost, a lot of people think they're going to get the most accurate credit report from Credit Karma or Experian or a paid app. You want to make sure that you can get a accurate copy of your credit report. So you can use Identity IQ, there's My Score IQ, My Free Score Now, a bunch of places. Once you obtain an accurate copy of your credit report, just for simple purposes, you can go online and find laws online that basically explain why negative items can't be reported on your credit report. Draft up letters, super simple, with your information at the top, and then just copy and paste with the account information or the name. And when I say account info, if you have a collection or hard inquiries, whatever it might be, you can add those items to those letters, ship them off to the credit bureaus, and watch those items fall off your credit report.
Coming from your experience, because like you said, and I know that's the story for a lot of other people as well. You turned 21, you found out, you on auntie's Con Edison bill and you're on your dad's gas bill and your credit report is looking all types of crazy. You had to go through the process yourself of cleaning up your credit. Have you ever run into the individuals that think that, it's something that's an overnight process? All right, cool. I get these letters, I send them out, and then in 10 seconds, everything is going to come off. And what do you say to those people? Because I get them all the time in my DMs.
Man, it's nuts. It's kind of one of those things, and I always try to make sure I let people know you didn't get yourself into this position overnight, so you can't expect it to be fixed overnight. But the beautiful thing about what we'll end up talking about is, but my personality type is I like to move fast and break things, right? So it's like the purpose or the goal of fixing your credit, if you're someone that wants to make more money or increase your income, is to be able to get funding, right? But we can eventually show you how to make money by helping other people do that. I'm getting ahead of myself, but we can, but my personality type is I like to move fast and break things. So, while you're fixing your credit in the background, I always tell people to just budget, at least 6 to 12 months to see that complete transformation. But you gotta be vigilant as well, because the credit bureaus, I don't want to be on record saying that they're crooks, but they drag their feet, and there's a reason why they're going through lawsuits on
top of lawsuits,
on holding stuff on people's credit. So
where do you stand? Because another thing too, you talked about using laws. Do you have any preference? Because we know individuals in space that lean more towards consumer law or towards Metro 2. Do you have any preference towards dispute method, or is it all more or less the same in terms of the results we can get for getting our credit report clean?
So this is what I will say. There's no one size fits all as it relates to a credit report, right? Because some people have late payments, some people have collections, some people have hard inquiries, charge-off, bankruptcies, whatever it might be. So, the credit bureaus are going to send stall letters regardless who you are whenever you send out those letters. And what I mean by a stall letter is they're going to say, oh, your name wasn't spelled right on the letter, or your driver's license isn't legible, or whatever it might be. So we use multiple dispute methods. I'm not privy to one. I do personally have a software that leverages Metro 2 compliance.
Dope.
And essentially what that does is it allows people with no experience to upload their credit report, and it'll generate custom credit repair letters for them that they can then print off and send.
Gotcha. Okay, we definitely gonna link that software in the description for y'all as well, for sure. Okay, so let's say we understand why we need to have our personal credit clean. We've gone through the process of if our credit was bad, we followed the steps on this pod to go ahead and clean it up. If we had no credit, we followed the steps on this pod to go ahead and start building it out, right? You talked about using primaries. We can use trade lines, but you don't want to hang your hat on that because that's not the end all be all, right? Now, once we've gone ahead and built our personal credit report out, let's say we're in good enough standing. We have the strong report and the strong score. How can we go about taking our personal credit, before we start getting funded on the business side to now start getting funded on the personal side? What does that process look like?
So I would say like the big goal of this is financial literacy. And you have to forgive me. I get the waffling. My lady gets on me about it, but the biggest thing, and where I talk about myself being a relationship coach, is first things first is, while you're cleaning that credit, you really want to take a look at your relationship and your habits with money, right?
Okay.
Everybody wants funding, right? Because they don't have money necessarily, right? But you have to have a game plan. And so what I aim to really just show people is like, you want to really assess where you are financially before you start to grab that funding. So, most people find themselves in what I say is one of three positions. The first is a deficit position, meaning they're spending all of what they make every month. And then they end up in a deficit position. A break-even position, meaning they're spending all of what they have coming in, so they end up breaking even. But really what we want to do is, by getting the funding, get to a point to where we're in a surplus position. And that means, maybe not going to a barber that's as hard as we want to go to,
right.
Or maybe not, getting Starbucks every morning. But we want to cut our expenses and lower our expenses and take a look at what it is we might be doing that can put us in that position. But once we start to talk about the personal side, depending on what a person is going to do, it's important to have a strategy in place that you're going to do with the money. But one of the things that we really like to do is, with a thinner credit report, obviously I talk about the metrics and we'll talk about the metrics on what it takes to be able to get business funding. But with a thinner report, they usually are more privy to giving you funding on the personal side first. And so what I typically like to do, and what I like to teach sometimes, is we'll leverage going and grabbing like a personal loan, and then we can leverage using that money to deposit into different business bank accounts. And then we will then apply for business funding, and they'll say, okay, he just deposited $50,000. We can at least give him $50,000. And then we go and pull that money, rinse and repeat the process. And then before that reports, we can either just pay that money off, or if we have a game plan, we can then go and use the personal funding as well.
That is very, very huge, because to your point, from my experience in the funding space, I know a lot of times the approvals we're able to get on the personal and on the business side, of course, they're looking at your report, but they're looking to see what kind of accounts do you already have access to, right? So if you're building out your credit and you only have, several accounts with like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 limits, and you go for even more funding, chances are they're probably going to give you around that range. But to your point, you just mentioned being able to leverage with that personal loan. Is it a secured loan, or what kind of loan is that specifically?
So typically, and whenever I talk about how to build a credit report out, and that's a great point. Whenever I talk about building a credit report out, you can go and get and you have to forgive me on the terms, you can go and do a pledge loan with banks like Navy Federal and stuff like that, where you can put the money up. My brain is blanking right now with this bright light coming in here.
Cool.
So I don't know if it's secured or unsecured, the term, but you can go and put the money up, to secure that loan, and then they'll then give you a loan for that amount that you
secured
put up.
Loan. Yeah.
So the same way, whenever it comes to the personal funding, it will be unsecured. You can do that with a thinner report, contrary to popular belief.
This is good. This is getting very, very good. This is getting very, very good. Okay, got you. So now another thing too that I'm sure you probably run into is that before we start getting over to the business side, as we're going out and building out our personal credit report, one of the more common questions I get is, where do the credit reporting agencies pull from? I'm getting it 20 times a day, 10 times a day in my DMs. People are asking me left and right. How are we able to now find out where these credit reporting agencies are pulling from before we go and apply for funding to build our own the personal side?
I think you said this is my camera, so I think I need to look at this one.
This you right here.
Because this is a part this is where I gotta give out a little bit of sauce. So really, truth be told, depending on where you are going to apply for something, one of the hacks that I teach is, whenever we do want to apply for something, I will tell my students typically if they're unsure on where a bank is going to pull from, we're going to freeze all three of our credit reports and then apply. So we're going to get that notification that says, looks like someone just tried to pull your Experian. It looks like someone just tried to pull your Equifax, or it looks like someone just tried to pull your TransUnion. And then we can unlock that credit report and then go and reapply for that.
Okay, let me sit up. I forgot who I brought on here. This is getting good. This is getting good. So, easiest way, and the reason why I love that method so much is because a lot of time there are different resources that can be used, but I'm sure, as you know too, like there are certain banks that pull from certain credit reporting agencies depending on what city you live in, and other banks that pull from other credit reporting agencies depending on if you live in different cities.
Absolutely.
But with your approach, you're pretty much saying we freeze our credit report, And it's almost like we're doing like a free trial test run application, if you will. We go and apply for the funding. And once we get that alert, like, hey, they're trying to pull from this credit reporting agency, we unfreeze. Now, do we go back and apply right away, or do we let some time pass before we go back and apply for the funding?
So it really depends. It really depends on how you want to do it. You can give it some time. Sometimes what you can even do is sometimes it will, even though it's frozen, they can still kind of see it sometimes. So you can even give a call and kind of see what they might be looking for or why they might deny it. But I typically like to, tell people, if you are someone whose credit doesn't necessarily meet the standard of what it should look like to get funding, let's try some soft pull plays. And so when I talk about soft pull plays, let's take a look at leveraging some pre-approval tools where we can go and try to attempt to get funding, and they'll try to pull your credit, but it's going to do a soft pull where there's not going to be a ding on your credit report. So then you can go ahead and submit that application.
What are some good pre-approval tools? Because that would, you actually, and this is good because you doing my job for me. That way, I've heard you talk about that before. For those who don't know, what are some good pre-approval tools that we can actually look into if we're trying to, once again, figure out where certain banks pull from before we go and apply for the funding?
You know what's so crazy?
Talk to me.
A lot of people don't do this. I will have people ask me questions, students in my program and even people that just slide into my DMs. Do you know that you can literally just Google
Pre-approval
soft pull banks or pre-approval tools, and you can find stuff like that? But I'm trying to cut out the middleman and let people be able to not have to do an extra step, because people people can be a little a little lazy sometimes.
Yeah, a little bit.
So some of my favorite pre-approval tools is Amex. Obviously, if we want to be building out our credit report, we can use the Amex tool to get a strong primary reporting credit card. This is my baby. This is a play that I don't like to give out a lot, but I'm gonna give it out because we own the Marvin Francois show, so we got to give out some games. So Credible.com, because we are talking about the personal side. Credible.com is a play that I love to run, and what it basically does is you want to make sure that all 3 credit reports are unlocked, but it is going to soft pull all 3 credit bureaus to take a look at what options you might be pre-approved for. And then once it shows you all those different options on what you're pre-approved for, and this is on the personal side, once it shows you what options you're pre-approved for, then we go to those websites and then apply there, because we know we have a really good shot at getting approved.
We haven't even gotten to business funding. We're still on the personal side.
Still on the personal side.
You sure? Because
we still on the personal side.
Listen,
38%. That's the amount of entrepreneurs that are struggling to get their business funded because their personal credit isn't where it needs to be. Now, you can look into alternatives like corporate credit cards and vendor accounts, but the truth is the easiest way to get access to 5 to 6 figures in funding is to have good personal credit. As an entrepreneur, the stress of trying to build a successful business is already enough as is. So why work harder than you need to when you can simplify the funding process by getting your credit restored? My company, Takeoff Financial, has served hundreds of entrepreneurs just like you by helping them avoid the pain of getting denied for business funding by restoring their personal credit, and we want you to be the next one. So click the link above or below this video to secure your free consultation, and let's put you in position to get you funding that your business needs.
Let's swing over to the business side, because I want to keep getting to the next level and beyond. So let's talk business funding. We just gave them literally minimum $250,000 worth of game on the personal side. Let's swing over to the business side now, so that people really have a clear cut picture, because we did all the heavy lifting on the personal side to where now we can leverage all that hard work, and now it makes things a million times easier on the business funding side, right? So I'm a business owner. I'm watching this podcast. All right, Baze, you got me good on the personal. I want to go and get some funding now. If I'm coming to you, what's the first step that I need to take in getting access to business credit?
So we're gonna take a step back. If you say you're a business owner, I'm assuming that your LLC is you have an LLC and it's structured properly and set up right.
I mean, I got an LLC. I don't know if it's structured right. Maybe you could give me the blueprint on how to structure, but I know I got something.
Okay, so let's just assume, because I want to make sure that I'm giving out all the game on here. So let's just assume that you don't have an LLC or it's not structured properly. So the first things first. We want to go and get our business incorporated. Obviously, if we're not a real business on paper, if we haven't filed with whatever the Secretary of State is in our state, then our business isn't a legit business. But some of the steps that we can take before that is, if you're going to go into the banks to ask for real money, you want to look like the big businesses on paper, right? So when we talk about a Walmart, a Nike, a Apple, a Tesla, whoever, whenever you look them up in their headquarters, you're not going to see an apartment address. So you want to make sure that you have a professional address. A place that you can go and get something like that is Regis or Opus, and they will give you a professional address that you can use for your LLC. And then on top of that, you don't see them having, a 214 number, like a cell phone number or something like that. It's a professional number, a 1-800 number. So when you leverage those tools like Opus, Regis, iPostal, it comes with some of those things that allow you to incorporate your business and set it up. And then you can go and leverage a tool like Busy or InkFile. I don't have a sponsorship or anything with them. But,
we working on it. We're working on it.
Yeah, but you can go and leverage a tool like Busy or InkFile where they'll set up your LLC for you. But
talk to me.
Because we are trying to make sure that we can get the max amount of funding. You told me not to hit the table. I hit the table too.
That's
but
cool.
Because we're trying to go and get the max amount of funding, we want to make sure that when we set up that LLC, we aren't setting it up in a high-risk industry.
Talk to me about that.
So a lot of people might want to get into real estate. They might want to get into trucking, Airbnb, all these different things. Whatever you might want to get into. We don't want to say we're going to set our business up as Marvin Francois Transportation or Marvin Francois Trucking or Marvin Francois Real Estate or Construction, because those are high-risk industries, or credit repair even, because those are high-risk industries that the banks are going to look at as like, I don't know if we want to give them any money. So what I like to tell people is, and this is a gimme, a lot of people will say it, but I like to tell people human resources, consulting, marketing, those are some low-risk industries that you can use, and you can go and set up your LLC under that as a consulting type of business, and then you are looking good on paper for you to go and get the business funding, as long as your personal credit is in position.
As long as the personal credit.
But that's the LLC side. That's just the LLC. We got to make sure that's in order for sure.
So before we even do anything on the business funding side, we want to make sure that we have our business structured the right way. We know how to structure it, but then you also gave us the what, as in what different resources we can use to go ahead and do that. And you also just gave some great game as well in terms of industry, which is huge. A lot of people don't look at that, but all those different parts play such a tremendous role in how much funding we get access to.
Absolutely.
Right? We don't want 5K, we want 50K.
Absolutely.
We don't want 50K, we want 100K and beyond.
Absolutely.
So this is good. This is very, very good. Okay. So let's say we followed that blueprint and we structured our business. We slightly touched on it earlier, but I want to get a bit deeper into it because it's one of the buzzwords we hear thrown around a lot in the funding space. Funding sequence. Some people call it funding sequences. Other people call it credit stacking. For those who have a bit of an idea of what that is, could you talk a bit about or further explain what a funding sequence is and why it's so important to us going out and getting access to funding?
So similar to kind of what you were just saying a second ago about we want to maximize the amount of money that we can go and get from the banks, right? So similar to having your LLC set up properly, that can be the difference, having a funding sequence, that can be the difference between getting a $5,000 approval versus getting a $50,000 or $75,000 approval. So when we talk about having a funding sequence, we want to strategize and know where we're going to get the money, right? So whether it's banks that pull strictly from Experian, banks that pull strictly from TransUnion or Equifax, if we don't have a funding sequence, sometimes if we try to apply for a bank and we're just going straight Experian banks, we might get to the third bank that we apply for, and we've already applied for 2 banks. They may be hard inquiry sensitive, where if we have multiple hard inquiries, they're not going to approve you, and it's going to be an automatic denial. So by having a funding sequence, we can fund our clients, or you can get yourself funded horizontally instead of vertically, to where it's like, okay, I can run a Experian play, and then I can run a TransUnion play, and then I can run an Equifax play, and then I can remove the inquiries, or we can repeat the process, and then we just want to keep doing that, and each time you remove those inquiries, you can keep going. I think I read something today. It's like 4,000 banks out there. So the bag is unlimited.
The bag is definitely unlimited. It's alive and it's well, and we giving y'all the strategies to go out and get it. So this is very, very good. So funding ourselves horizontally, not vertically, so that we can increase how much funding we're getting access to. Is there a sequence in particular? Because once again, I want to create as much opportunity and just give as much free game as possible. Do you personally have a set of banks that you like to go to, or you normally recommend for most of your clients or your students to go to, that you could give to the audience?
Yeah, so I'm going to look in the camera on this because I want to give this out. So really, just on a couple plays, not including the personal side, if you leverage the play that I was talking about just by grabbing a personal loan before it reports, you can go to almost any bank and deposit those funds in the business bank account, and they're going to give you that amount, if not at least 75% of that amount as a credit card. But, as it relates to funding sequences, if you don't want to touch your personal or grab a personal loan, rather, whenever we talk about funding sequences, on the Experian side, Chase is a big commercial bank everybody likes.
Right.
They usually typically like to give you up to 150,000 before they start to ask for documentation. So you can get that through a mix of either business credit cards or business lines of credit. PNC is another bank that I like to go to that pools Experian. And when it comes to PNC, they give you a $50,000 credit card and a $50,000 line of credit. That puts us at
right now, 200,000.
250 or,
Right.
200,000,
Yep.
just on the business side. And then aside from Experian, there's some other plays as well. But those are the main two that I like. Amex is a big one, obviously. They can pull TransUnion or Experian depending
Right.
on where you're located. And that's where I talk about the part about freezing your credit ports or, just taking a look at that and knowing that. But I really like to stay in Experian for the most part because Experian is the easiest to delete the hard inquiries. Experian is more on our side than any of the other credit bureaus.
Facts.
So Experian, you can delete the hard inquiries over the phone. But let's pop over to TransUnion.
Let's do it.
So whenever it comes to TransUnion, I like to, depending on where you're located, and, I said I wasn't going to go too deep into the foreign entity stuff, but depending on where you're located, BMO is a good bank that's in the Midwest. They have a product actually for Black and Latino business owners.
Really?
Where you can get a business credit card for $50,000 and a business line of credit for $50,000 as well. They pull TransUnion or Equifax, but your business usually has to be registered in the Midwest, where you can file a foreign entity, which is basically a license to do business in one of those states or in the region where those banks are, and you can essentially just go apply for that. So that's one of the big banks on TransUnion. I like Navy Federal a lot as well. There's some other credit unions. My brain is blanking right now, but I like Navy Federal as well. On the personal side, they give you a credit card along with the auto loan, but they pull Experian on the business side, and I talk about Experian as well because, again, those inquiries are easier to delete. Yeah. Equifax now, depending on who you are, a lot of the Elan financial banks, they pull Equifax. Equifax, guys, is one of those banks that, and they're going through their data breach stuff, their lawsuits where they're just dragging their nuts. I said that I was going to try to keep it PG, but they're dragging their nuts on getting stuff removed from credit reports. So I don't tell people to steer clear of Equifax, but Experian and TransUnion are the main two places that I like to go to. But GM Marcus has a business card that usually pulls Equifax, and that card is a credit card that goes up to 40 or 50,000. That card is a soft pull, but the way that it works is once you're approved and you decide to accept the offer, then they pull your credit from there. So I think that's like 400,000 or 500,000.
That's a nice little $500,000. That's a nice little $500,000. This is getting very, very, very good. This is getting very, very, very. And you said the big is GM or GN? What is that?
GM. So that's Goldman Sachs. So
Goldman Sachs.
They actually have the Apple card as well. So for anybody who needs a personal credit card, if you have a Apple phone, I'm not sure if it's, for you Android users, if you're able to get this, but what you can do is you can go in, make sure that your TransUnion report is unlocked, apply for this, go open up your iPhone, go to the wallet, apply for the Apple card, and then it will tell you if you're approved. And then before you get approved for that card, you can then go and freeze your credit report, accept the offer, and then it'll block the hard inquiry, and you get a primary reporting account on your credit report. But Goldman Sachs has the Apple card as well as the GM business card. That's a soft pull as well.
So then we have a really robust funding sequence now. You mentioned a couple of different banks between Amex, Chase, PNC, BMO. I didn't even know about the bank and the Black and Latino program that they had. I'm actually do research into that afterwards. Do you have a stance when it comes to, so if we're going for the funding, we know you can either apply for funding online or we can apply in branch. Do you personally have a stance, or based off your experience, should we lean more towards applying in branch if we can? Are there benefits to doing that versus applying online? Where do you stand when it comes to that?
So there's two things that I kind of stand, as it relates to the applying online. So the first thing is by building relationships, right? I say I'm a relationship coach.
Yes, sir.
Relationships are just going to allow you to go so much further in life because you never know what you don't know. And when somebody usually has more experience, you can pay for their experience, or you can essentially leverage that relationship to get a foot in the door. So when I say that from a relationship perspective, by having a banking relationship, whether that's opening up an account with that bank, or leveraging bank reps by being able to connect yourself with banking relationship managers, you're able to submit your applications either online or in branch through them. And for whatever reason, I don't know the magic behind it, but usually whenever they do it, if you were to just do it online, it's computer generated or it's computer underwritten, you might get a 5 or 10,000 approval. But for whatever reason, whenever we leverage using a bank rep, a lot of times you can 10x whatever that amount is by going through a bank rep. So that's one of the big things on why I think that the relationships are important.
Very good. This is very, very good. Okay, so funding sequence, another point that I really wanted to make sure that we cover too, because this is also another buzzword in the funding space, bank tiers, right? A lot of people talk about bank tiers. For those who aren't familiar, could you explain what bank tiers are and what role they play in us getting access to funding?
Yeah, so there's tiers as it relates to your credit as well, but whenever it comes to the bank tiers, obviously on the commercial side, when you have a lot of those bigger banks, they usually are going to have their criteria. They might be a little bit more set, but whenever we start to talk about credit unions and things like that, their interest rates can be a lot more friendlier. And then usually a lot of those banks are membership based. Navy Federal is a big one where you do have to have a family member that's, active service or previous service, but there are some other credit unions, digital, where you can just essentially pay for a membership for, $20, and they'll even waive that fee where you can then go and get the bag from them as well. But leveraging those different bank tiers is definitely something that you can do. But I do think, on the commercial side, or as it relates to maximizing the funding that you get, you want to leverage a mix of both for sure.
What would you say is the biggest mistake from your experience being in space? What's the biggest mistake you see most entrepreneurs making whenever they're trying to get access to funding? The biggest one of them all.
That's tough because there's a lot of mistakes to be made.
1,000%.
There's a lot of mistakes to be made. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, I would say generally speaking, just have a lot of ego. I think that, their business is such of their baby that they don't want to reach out and ask for help from someone who may have some expertise to get them the max amount of funding that they can get.
Okay.
So what that ego stops them from doing is realizing that, okay, their LLC might not be structured properly. So, they're going to get an automatic denial, or their credit report might be very thin. We have people who reach out to us. I'm sure you deal with the same thing.
Every day.
I need funding. Okay, well, what's your credit score? I have a 700 credit score, and then you go on there, they only have an auto loan from Santander on there. So not shaming Santander at all or anything like that, but they only have one card on there. And then the last thing is really just not having a banking relationship. If you just blindly apply, or not doing any research, or even just running your credit through the mud. Obviously when you have a lot of hard inquiries on your credit report when you're going for funding, banks can see that and they're going to say, well, he's just doing business with everybody. Why would we want to give him any money? It's like, if you were trying to apply for something and you have a bunch of hard inquiries on your report, why would I want to give you any money? Because that means if somebody else gives you money, you likely have to pay them back before you can pay me back. So making sure that credit report is clear as well is one thing, the big things that can really impact whether you get approved or denied.
I love that.
Listen, if you're an entrepreneur struggling to get funding because of your bad credit, then this video is for you. You see, I understand that when banks deny businesses for funding, they're not just denying businesses the capital they need, but they're also denying business owners the resources that they need to build the business of their dreams. And as a business owner, I've seen this happen over and over and over and over again, but I want you to know that there's a solution. Because here at Takeoff Financial, we've helped countless entrepreneurs just like you go from having poor personal credit and not being able to access funding to having perfect personal credit that they were able to leverage to access 5 to 6 figures in funding, and we want you to be the next one. So click the link above or below this video to secure your free consultation, and we'll see you on the other side of success, family.
There are also a lot of there's so much information that's floating around in the space. I'm sure you're seeing it and I'm seeing it. And I think a large reason why my DMs are flooded and your DMs are flooded with people asking them anyone questions because they don't know what's what and who's who, right? To talk about some of the different things that we're seeing being discussed in the space, I'm curious to know what your stance is. When we talk about getting access to funding, but then there's also a side that people talk about of building business credit to get funding, right? For where we are right now, this year's 2024, do we still need to build business credit before we're even in a position to get access to funding?
I will say that, it really just depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right? So, as it relates to what's going to get you the quickest results, I would say taking care of your personal credit and then personal guaranteeing your business, allowing them to take a look at your personal credit to give funding for the business is going to be probably the best bet.
Right.
Obviously, we can build out our EIN, which is our business is social, to go and get funding. And there are things that we can do. But from my personal experience, a lot of banks, whenever it comes to giving out funding just on the EIN side, they want to see proof of income because, you know, a business, typically when you start a new LLC, it's like, you know, if your LLC was started in 2024, you know, we don't really have a lot of history that we can go off of. So do you have bank statements? You know, what do you have? And so that's the beauty of being able to PG. I definitely think that it's still important because there are things that you can do by just adding a few small vendor accounts to an LLC, like get vehicles in your business name just using your EIN. But I think that, you know, I don't think that we should neglect one or the other. I think that you definitely can do both, you know, and two things can coexist. But, you know, as it relates to it, the quickest path to getting the funding, from my perspective, the type of funding that can actually make a difference in your business is going to be by PGing.
I love that. Does the type of funding, because we've talked about different types of funding products, right? So we've talked about loans, we've talked about business credit cards. We haven't touched on lines of credit, but that's another funding product in and of itself. As a relationship coach, we're forming relationships with these banks. Is there a process that we need to be looking into when we're trying to determine, okay, for this bank, I should be looking at lines of credit and not business credit cards. And this bank, well, I don't really need a secured loan or line of credit. Let me go for a business credit card. Is there anything that goes into that at all from your personal experience?
Yeah, so I think that, like I said, keeping the main thing and making sure you're in position credit-wise is going to be key, number one. Because once you do that, there's really no bank that you can't go and ask for funding, and they want to give the money out because it's, quite literally just paper. The worst thing that can happen is they tell you no, which is going to happen even if you have the most perfect credit report because, weird things happen sometimes.
Yeah.
But the worst thing that can happen when they tell you no is you're going to get a hard inquiry. So you can just go ahead and apply anyways. But as it relates to going and getting that funding, you just really want to make sure that you're in position. And I lost my train of thought. You really just want to make sure that you're in position.
Got you. Okay. So now watch this, right? We've touched on the personal side and the business side. With you actually have a company where you're assisting people in getting funding. And you're also helping other people learn how they could do the same.
Yep.
Like, for anyone who's watching this, I need you guys to understand something. If you understand how to get yourself $50,000 to $100,000 in funding, you're literally sitting on a 6 to 7 figure business and you don't even know it. Because if you know how to do it for yourself, you could do it 5, 10 times over for other people, like you're teaching individuals how to do. So now that we've given them the game on how to get funding on the personal and on the business side, I also want to give them the game on how they can monetize this information as well, right? For some people, they just want to get the funding and have the cards in their wallet to look cool. But what if we can teach them now how they can take that information and create another business? Can we go ahead and do that?
Absolutely. So really, I don't know if it was my mom or grandma, but somebody used to say, if you want everybody to be happy with you, sell ice cream. Starting a funding business is the equivalent to that because everybody wants money. That's the goal, right? Even if you want ice cream, you need to have money to buy ice cream. So starting a funding business is really the most genius business model that I can personally think of. Obviously, I'm very biased, but like a lot of people watching this, I work a 9 to 5, and you know that I am able to make, my yearly salary in a month by running a funding business working part-time hours. And so essentially there might be a lot of people watching this, or there might be a lot of people who want to get their credit right and want to get funding for themselves, but everybody's not in position to do that right away. And like I said, my personality type is I like to move fast and break things. And so if you work a 9 to 5 and you're like me, they teach us how to make money slow, but I want to teach people how to make money fast. And so by starting a funding business, you're able to learn how to make money fast because you can find someone who is in position and has the good credit report to go and get funding. And I don't know if y'all have ever done a credit card application or a loan application, but it takes less than 5 minutes. And if you get somebody $100,000 in less than 5 minutes, and then you charge them a percentage on the back end, let's say 10%, and you make $10,000, I don't really know any other jobs that are gonna pay you $10,000 for less than
5 minutes of work.
Less than 5 minutes of work.
So what's the first step that we need to take in doing that?
So really, with starting a funding business?
Yes, sir.
So really, I want to break this down first because essentially I want to make sure people understand what the concept of, running, what a funding business is. So running a funding business or starting a funding company it's pretty straightforward. So you are helping entrepreneurs, everyday people who want to start a business, basically get access to capital by essentially being the middleman and knowing where to go to get the money and then charging them a percentage on the back end. So really you're keeping yourself out of harm's way in a sense. Obviously we want to make sure that they have a good game plan in place and a good strategy, but you aren't the one that's necessarily going and getting that funding and then having to pay that money back. Why not let somebody that's an expert or someone who has a game plan and knows what they want to do with the money, why not help them achieve their dreams. And then in doing so, by helping other people, we get blessed as well.
I love that. I love that. So we understand the base of what we need to do when it comes to the funding company. First step is like, what does the structuring of all that look like? I have the game, but like, how do I structure this thing the right way so I can actually start making money off of it?
You know what the beautiful part about running a funding company is unlike any other business model, running a funding company is one of those business models where once you get this game, there's really no overhead that's required that is not a part of your everyday life.
Wow.
So if you already have a phone, then you can start a funding company. If you already have a laptop, you can start a funding company. If you're within walking distance of a coffee shop, then you can go and get on Wi-Fi to fill out the applications for people. So really, as long as you have those tools, then you can start a funding company. The only essential things that you typically need is some sort of agreement in place, service agreement to protect yourself and your business. And then DocuSign, which I typically teach people to just get the free trial. Once they get their first client, you have 30 days to send that out and then make some money. And essentially, you're just asking people, hey, do you need some money? And most people are going to say, yeah. Or do you want some money? Most people are going to say, yeah. But then the beautiful thing, in my program is not only do I teach people how to start a funding business, everybody wants money, right? So when you say, I can help you get funding, everybody's going to say that they want to do that. But everybody's not going to be in position. So then you can turn around and then downsell them on credit repair because they're not going to be in position. So we're not letting any money walk out the door at all.
This is good. Okay, so then you kind of started to touch on even the marketing side. So it's like, once we have that structure, how do we even go about, or for you personally, you could speak to it. How did you go about finding some of your first clients earlier on when you were getting started?
I think people really overcomplicate this, and I don't have it right with me, but there's a thing in my pocket that you can open up. And
it's called a phone.
And it's called a phone.
Yes, sir.
And you can text everybody in that phone, and you know what you can say? You could say, hey, I do X, Y, and Z. Do you know anybody that could be interested? And they say, oh, no, but I can let somebody know. Or, they say, well, I'm interested. So that's a very easy way. The second way that I teach a lot of the students in my program is just go on Facebook and make a post. Say, hey, my name is X, Y, and Z. I help entrepreneurs get access to capital or people that want to get access to capital. If you have at least a 700 credit score, shoot me a message if you're interested. And obviously we talk about they have to be in position, but at least you're able to trigger that conversation to
start getting some leads.
To where you can do that. And those are just some of the free ways. But you know what? We getting saucy.
Let's do it.
We getting saucy. So there is a free tool.
Come on now.
Online.
Let's do it.
We on the Marvin Francois show, so I gotta give out some game. There is a free tool online on Google Chrome. It's called Instant Data Scraper.
Say that again?
Instant Data Scraper.
Okay, what does this do?
It looks like a Pokeball. I don't know if you're familiar with Pokemon or people watch this familiar with Pokeball. It looks like a Pokeball. What Instant Data Scraper allows you to do once you install that plugin is you can go on websites like a real estate website or a Zillow or something, and you can press that tool and it will scrape all of the emails and phone numbers off of that website.
I'm with you.
You can get hundreds and thousands of contacts, and you can literally reach out to those people, and you can get leads for your credit repair business or your funding business. Instant Data Scraper. And it gets wicked, right? Because you can look up construction companies, you can look up transportation companies, industries where people might have good money, but they might not have good credit.
Gotcha.
And you can scrape the data from those websites and reach out to those people.
So, and this is
that's like an inner circle.
Yeah,
that's like an inner circle gem that I just
instant
gave right
data
there.
scraper.
Instant Data Scraper. It looks like a Pokeball.
So you have this free tool. You can use it. You can go to websites that are hosting individuals that are adjacent to credit. So like you said, real estate, construction, all different things. It pulls emails from the website
and phone numbers
and phone numbers
and phone numbers.
So not only can we reach out to these individuals by way of cold email, but we could also do cold SMS as well. And to your point, you said earlier, you're gonna have people that's gonna be like, "Who are you? Go away." But then you're also gonna have percent of people like, "Actually, no, yeah, I am interested." And they could either fall on one side, either side of the coin. Either they're gonna be in position to get the funding, and you can go ahead and make your money there, or they're not gonna be in position, but they want to be in position. And if you have your credit repair in place, you can go ahead and get the money there. So it's not just generating leads for funding; you're also getting leads for credit. That's crazy.
And then the beautiful part about it, we might have to cut this out because that was too much sauce. But the beautiful part about it is, once you clean their credit, then you can get them some funding.
Come on, brother. Listen,
so man. We're double dipping.
We're double dipping
we double
indeed.
dipping.
We're double dipping indeed. Listen, man. Listen. And This is good. This is good. Listen,
Instant data scraper. It looks like a Pokeball.
instant data scraper. I'm doing some research after this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, brother, I know we do have to start closing out. Before we get you out of here, first and foremost, you came on here and gave a ridiculous amount of free value to the people. So I appreciate you for that. For those who are watching this that want to stay tapped in and wrapped in, not only with you, but also what you have going on, talk a little bit about just where people can find you, but more importantly, some of the different things that they can do to tap in with some of the programs that you offer.
Yeah, so absolutely. So you can find me on social media, most social media platforms under Billionaire Baze. That's Billionaire BAZE with an underscore on Instagram and TikTok. YouTube and Facebook, I'm under Basil Jackson, my first and last name. Right now, really the main thing that we're doing is I really want to just level the playing field, right? So I really want other people, because I run my own funding company, I want other people to have access to this information. So I'm having a free live masterclass where I'm teaching people how to boost their credit, get $50K in funding, and how to make an extra $5,000 to $10,000 a month working 5 to 10 hours per month by starting their own funding business while working a job, because I work a job. I don't want that part to get missed. So this is something that anybody can do,
right?
Because obviously you want to get your credit in position, but why not run up a bag while you're helping other people out as well? So that's the main thing. I do offer some mentorship as well. I do have a funding mastery program where I basically hold people's hand from A to Z on starting a funding company. Some of those gems that I just gave out on how to get leads, where to get clients, how to structure your credit repair and funding company. My mentorship currently is $5,000, but really right now is what I really want to do is level the playing field. So for those of you guys that do want an opportunity to get extra help, you can reach out to me and we can have a conversation. The last thing as well, I want to make sure that I plug this. If you're somebody watching this that does have a 700 credit score, reach out to me if you're interested in getting funding as well, and we can start that conversation as well.
I love it. I love it. My guy, Basil Jackson, appreciate you for coming on here and giving the game. But more importantly, I appreciate each and every single one of y'all. Thank all of you for taking a second, minute, an hour out of your day on being here. And if you haven't already, make sure you go ahead and get tapped in and wrapped in with my guy, Billionaire Baze, with his free masterclass. And then also make sure you guys tell a friend to come here and watch this episode again.